And it is now time for the much talked about, much anticipated Maller monologue that will tell you who will win the NBA Finals. There is no reason to actually watch. We're going to tell you who's going to win. We're going to tell you how many games, the whole deal. All right, so let's discuss the question. We phrased it already, but who's going to win? Who is going to stand atop the peak of the mountain after the NBA Finals? Will it be the Heat or the Nuggets? You make the call. So I've got barbershop, mosquitoes, and pontoon boat. And we will tie all of these things together, and we are going to make a long, drawn-out championship series. So, as far as who we are picking, we are going Chalky McChalk in the NBA Finals. The Nuggets are your NBA champion. They bring in the bling bling. Now be ready for a nice outdoor parade in the Rocky Mountain area coming up in the next couple weeks. And I'll tell you why. So this is not brain surgery. It's merely gas baggery is what it is. But go to the barbershop. You're going to need a shave, right? You need a shave at the barbershop. And I recommend you pick Occam's razor, because that's what I picked, Occam's razor. I was on the radio hours ago in New Zealand with my friend Darcy Waldegrave. We were talking about the NBA Finals, and I explained, listen, don't outthink yourself. Denver is a juggernaut type of team right now, the way they've been playing, and the card here is the Joker card. The Nuggets, he is by far head and shoulders better than anybody on Miami, and I love Jimmy Butler. But the Nuggets have outscored their opponents by 130 points when Nikola Jokic has been on the floor. He's played 583 minutes so far in the playoffs, and when he's been out there, Denver has been plus 130. He has been the most dominating force in the postseason. Do I see that ending here? Not outside of injury. Now, injuries, all bets are off, but assuming he stays healthy, everything goes through the Serbian stallion. And you've got the perfect wingman, Jamal Murray. The way these guys have played, it's similar to a nice dish that goes together like the macaroni and the cheese. Perfect. Murray has upgraded his game in the playoffs. So many of these guys in the NBA downgrade their performance. We complain about it all the time. Guys that aren't as good in the big moment. Jamal Murray's been the opposite. He's averaging 27.7 points per game here in the playoffs. That is up from 20 points during the regular season. It's the yin and the yang, and Nikola Jokic has been assisted by Murray 48 times. Murray's been assisted by Jokic 36 times. So it's the two-man game, the two-headed dragon for Denver, which has been getting it done. That's what we're betting on. Those are the most and second most assists from a player to a single teammate in the playoffs. So that's been the most dominating duo, and that's how you end up in the NBA Finals. Now, on the other side, turning the page here, page 2, what gives the Nuggets concern? Now, I'm picking Denver in 6, but what gives Denver some pause here when it comes to playing the Heat? So the first thing is rather obvious. It's the tenacity of Miami. Say what you will. We don't like the term Heat culture. We're annoyed by that. It's been said too much. But the Heat do play with gumption. They are fundamentally sound, and they have assembled a group of human mosquitoes that are absolute pests, and they're a nuisance on the court, and that does wear down opponents. We've seen it throughout the playoffs here. Now, what's my evidence? Miami leads the postseason in charges drawn per game. They're second in deflections per game. And I flash back to when I was around Phil Jackson years ago, and he used to talk about hands on balls, right? Kobe Bryant did the same thing. But that's because of their spirit animal in Jimmy Buckets. Jimmy Butler, 35 steals. He's got in the playoffs, 10 more than any other player in the postseason. He also leads the playoffs in total deflections. So a lot of those numbers are based on the performance of one Jimmy Butler leading the way. And the Heat, if you don't screw up and you make the other team have to make shots to beat you, you can go further. The Heat have committed almost a turnover and a half fewer per game than their opponent in the road through the Eastern Conference to the NBA Finals. That is the second best differential in the playoffs. And you toss in as an added bonus, but wait, there's more. The snipers are going to snipe, and they have taken a quantum leap. The Miami Heat, who sucked at a time you could not suck during the regular season, have corrected that blight on their resume. The Heat have shot 39% from three-point range. That is the number one mark in the postseason. They were 27th out of 30 teams in the regular season. So they've gone from 27 to number one. That is impressive. That's the biggest leap ever in the history of the sport. In the history of the sport. We've never seen anything like this. So how could I possibly go against that? Well, Denver's better, and I expect a regression to the mean. Why? I have learned over the years watching sport that extreme outcomes are followed by very consistently moderate outcomes. And take Caleb Martin, for example. This is a great guy set up for a crash and burn. Caleb Martin, what a great story he was in the Eastern Conference Finals, not if you're a Celtic fan, but Caleb Martin has an effective field goal percentage. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds important, of 68.4%. If that holds, that would be the top mark in NBA playoff history. We have never seen, for anybody who shot 150 field goal attempts or more, we have never seen anyone shoot the basketball more efficiently and effectively than Caleb Martin. But the law of averages say that he's not that good. He's not, and that will change. That will fall back down. All right, last word. So I keep looking at ways I can be wrong on this. I'm picking Denver in 6, but how can Miami neutralize Nikola Jokic? So the way I've determined here is to go online and buy a voodoo doll. And I'd like you to poke with a pin the ankle. Maybe you'll get a rolled ankle. And that's what Miami benefited from with Jason Tatum. But in all seriousness, the one chink in the armor is in the middle. Nikola Jokic from mid-range has not been good. In fact, he is the second worst marksman in the mid-range game among players that have attempted at least 25 of those shots in the playoffs. He's the second worst. That has been his one weak spot. So if you can keep him in the midpoint, you got a shot. If you take a nap, he'll kill you. As Jokic is shooting over 47% from three-point range, the second best mark in the entire NBA. The only guy that was better was Devin Booker, and he's having a cocktail in Cancun right now. And the pressure's also on Bam Adebayo. Good luck. Bring it up, Bam. Dribble, 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 turn it over. Now, the other storyline, the final point here that I've read a lot about, and you've probably seen this, is the altitude in Denver a real edge for the Nuggets? So I am shaking my head no. Now, we had some fun with this. I used to have these guys that worked the show, Roberto and Coop. They don't really seem to work on the show anymore, but they're Laker-like guys, and I used to bust their balls on that. I thought it was fun because they got annoyed and they would react, and so I would had my tongue firmly planted to my cheek while I was saying that. But despite the preview write-ups, which is lazy river sports journalism, that mile-high altitude will be the deciding factor, we don't buy it. We're not buying that. I've heard this my entire life. The only reason this is a thing right now is because Denver, this is very hard to figure out, Denver's actually got a good team. And I look, and over the years, I watched a lot of Nuggets teams and Rockies and the Avalanche and the Broncos. And every once in a while, they'll win a championship, the Avalanche and the Broncos. It's not like they're exactly hoarding titles, right? I mean, maybe they are, and I just haven't been paying attention. It's a lazy storyline. Visiting teams over the years have figured out different ways to mitigate the altitude. Now, it's a factor, but there's all kinds of factors, right? Guys have issues with their parents who are asking for money, or their cousins or their uncles or their baby mamas or their wives or whatever. There's all kinds of mitigating situations, but variables to these things. But the only time it ever seems to matter, the only time it's ever an issue with the Rockies, the Nuggets, the Avalanche, and the Broncos, the only time it matters is when they actually have really talented teams, when they have elite rosters. Spoiler alert, the Denver Nuggets this year, you could put a giant pontoon boat out in the Indian Ocean, right in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and play basketball, and the Nuggets would be really, really competitive and probably win the whole thing because they happen to have players that are playing better than most of the other team's players. Understand?